the second pillar of this approach?
The second pillar is known as santosha, improved mental state. That's what this means. Santosha, improved mental state. And it relies on power, right? So there has to be the experience of the first pillar in order to begin to improve the mental state. So second pillar is dependent upon the first pillar. So in santosha, the focus is to, as I said, improve your mental state. We have found through so many case studies that we have done, surveys that we have taken, and also the research that we have done, that most people live with a restless, agitated mind. And this is just a fact. And it's certainly true of everyone who comes to our school. So when the mind is restless, when it is agitated, it's impossible to experience peace. It's impossible to experience indescribable joy, the euphoria, the bliss of the self. For that to happen, the mind has to become quiet. The mind has to become silent. And so this is not as hard as it may appear. We have methods, and it's very important to learn how to go beyond your mind and beyond your senses. Beyond the mind, beyond the senses, there is the experience of the indweller, and that's the witness to your mind. There is a witness to your mind. We ask people, how do you know you're thinking? How do you know you've slept? Often people wake up and they say, wow, I had a great sleep. How did you know that? If you were asleep and the mind was mostly inactive and the brain was inactive, how do you know that you slept well? But people often say, well, I had a great sleep. How do you know? So you know you're thinking. You know these things because there is an indweller, a witness to your mind. We frame this in what we call witness consciousness because there is a spiritual witnessing awareness. And that spiritual witnessing awareness is beyond the mind and beyond the senses. And the goal is to be able to keep the mind quiet enough to experience that state of witness consciousness. From that state, observations, very important observations, can be made, right? Because first and foremost, it's very important to remember the mind loves the places it frequents the most. Your mind loves the places it frequents the most. So this begs a question. This begs the question, where do you allow your mind to wander? In what nooks and crannies do you allow your mind to go? Because you have the power to direct your mind. Everyone does. Some people don't take responsibility for that fact. Others do. But the truth is, you're responsible for where your mind goes. And so if you allow your mind to wander into places that keep the mind restless and agitated, you're never going to experience Chit Shakti, the spiritual power. So part of improving the mental state is learning how to go beyond the mind, beyond the senses, first, so that you become aware of where you allow your mind to wander. Because again, the mind loves the places it frequents the most. My guru used to say, if you meditate on lemons, you're not going to get mangoes. So that's the first thing. Observing and having the ability to observe where you allow your mind to go that is no longer useful for your spiritual journey. Second, you get what you meditate on. This is the second primary focus of improving your mental state, is to really understand and embrace this. You get what you meditate on. And so if you allow your mind to constantly wander restlessly and in an agitated fashion into thoughts, notions, beliefs that are contracting, you're going to remain contracted. you're going to remain contracted, right? And then it becomes almost impossible to experience peace, to experience indescribable joy, because you always get what you meditate on. So, conversely, if you meditate on the self, if you meditate on the indescribable joy of your God nature, now the mind begins to expand. People make the mistake of thinking that the mind is the brain. These are two separate things. The brain is not the mind. In fact, the mind is the parent of the brain, and the self, God, is the parent of the mind. This is very important to remember. So, improved mental state means first that you acknowledge that the brain is just a lump of flesh with some nerves sitting in water. The brain is a signaling station for what is sent to it by the mind. The thoughts, the notions, the beliefs that then the brain interprets in ways that signals can be sent to the organs, to the muscles, and to your cells ultimately. And so these two are different. The second point of confusion that's very important to understand if you're going to improve your mental state is that there's a difference between happiness and satisfaction. And this is where people really get stuck. Happiness and satisfaction are not the same. Satisfaction always hinges upon outcomes. Satisfaction hinges upon whether or not you feel you have attained outcomes to a particular level that quite honestly satisfies your ego. Happiness, on the other hand, in order to be happiness, cannot be dependent upon any person, place, thing, or outcome. Cannot. Happiness is a spiritual state. It's an innate state. The reason why people understand this is because their minds are too agitated. So as the mind becomes quieter and quieter, and as you develop the ability to turn your mind within, which you have the power to do, and to direct it to the self, to this state of indescribable joy and peace, because the mind is an energy of consciousness. And so as you do this, the mind begins to expand and expand and expand beyond the limitation of restlessness, beyond the limitation of agitation. And with your witnessing awareness, you're really able to begin to see and to experience how important it is to direct the mind to your God nature, to your God power, rather than allowing it to wander in useless notions, beliefs, and thoughts. So that's the second thing. You get what you meditate on. Very important to remember, because if your mind is agitated, you can't complain. It's because you're allowing your mind to meditate on things that keep it contracted. Third part of improved mental state is to remember always that you become what you obey. You become what you obey. This is absolutely true, and you can observe this for yourself. People observe this for themselves. But you become what you obey. This is connected, of course, to the fact that the mind loves the places it frequents the most, and you get what you meditate on. So if the restless mind is not arrested, if the agitation of the mind is not cured, you really become, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So with an expanded mind, you're actually able to overcome fear, doubt, anxiety, worry, greed, all of these things that keep the mind contracted, that keep the mind agitated. You're able to overcome those. But if you don't take the steps to improve your mental state, you become trapped in the prison of those things. And this is easy to understand, particularly from the place of spiritual witnessing awareness. And so with improved mental state, again, we have methods that are employed that I mentioned previously, that I'll mention again: meditation on the self, japa, mantra repetition, chanting of mantras, selfless service, and also some degree of study, a little bit at a time, of the wisdom of the Siddhas of our Siddha nation, And in this way, the mind begins to expand. The mind learns how to become quieter and quieter, even during the course of your daily mundane existence. Now, because you didn't ask me this, but I know you're probably going there, it is often a comment that people who meditate in the way I've described, who use these methods, are simply space cadets, that they just get spaced out and they're not able to really practically engage in life. And this could not be further from the truth. A quiet mind is a sharper mind. Now, this has been proven. There's no doubt about this. And we have case study after case study after case study. A quiet mind is a sharper mind. And as you improve your mental state in this way, something else happens. You have more available mental energy. This is also true. And so this is Santosha, improved mental state.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Nam